Next up, speaking of it doesn't matter, here's some things that I just think don't matter right now, and they seem to be getting some attention out there in the media, out there in amongst the fans, and it's fine. Look, spring training overreactions are pretty fun, and I don't want to corral anyone from doing it. Please react to what you react to, think what you think, enjoy what you're enjoying out there. Make proclamations. Look, that's what's fun about fanning. Lenyn Sosa has come out of the gate in spring training hot as hell, and I'm here to tell you that it is absolutely meaningless. All right, he's a post-type prospect with terrible on-base skills. He generally has terrible swing decisions as well. This is kind of the opposite of everything that Chris Getz is pulling together with the team that he's trying to assemble, kind of almost from scratch as he gets rid of players from the last group. Lenyn Sosa doesn't fit that group. His infield defense is generally poor at every position. Now, they're playing him at first base today. I think he could probably handle first base. He is a legit 6 foot tall, so maybe he's tall enough to receive some throws, unlike some other guys that we may be lying about their 6 feet height. Okay, a hot spring training for Lenyn Sosa means absolutely zero to the BeefLoaf. Okay, I think there are paths for Lenyn Sosa to make the roster, but I don't think much of it has to do with being 5 for 9. I just don't think it matters that. And his line going into today, I didn't see. I saw earlier he was 0 for 2, but he was 5 for 9, 5 RBIs, and 2 walks. So he had a very, very hot start out of the gate. But I don't think much of that matters. The 3 paths for Lenyn Sosa to make this roster, in my personal opinion. Number 1, Chris Getz finally realizes that the crew that he's put together just doesn't have enough pop. There's not enough slug, if you will. There's not enough, ball go far, team go far. Not enough thump on this roster, and really there isn't. A lot of the build here is guys who control the strike zone better, and that's what they're trying to push through here. But there isn't those guys that really wallop the ball, save for Luis Robert. So maybe he realized, okay, look, we need at least one more guy in there who can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And Sosa does hit lefties. So if they thought, well, look, we're just going to play Lenyn against lefties, and then we'll see where it goes from there. If we need to use him otherwise, fine. But he's a guy at this point, he's not a prospect anymore. You can sit his ass on the bench and not worry about it one bit. So that's one. If they realize we have less power than we need on this roster, just to make this reasonable. Because remember, a lot of the planning here isn't for let's try to win as many games as we can this year. That's really not the emphasis. The emphasis is trying to figure out the parts. Which one of the parts work? And if we can figure out these parts do work, or these parts hit, or these parts are good at doing this role, that's good. We'll start to maneuver around that. But right now, your assumption is you have Luis Robert, and you have a bunch of shit that you don't really know what it is, and you got to try to figure it out. So power could be a component they want just at a minimum, so they don't look ridiculous. They don't want to be repeating, a sub-50 win season. I know that for sure, even if they're not exclusively going for wins. Number 2, the second way Lenyn Sosa can make it onto this roster is injuries. And it looks like if they're playing him at first, there's a lot of paths from that way. If Andrew Vaughn were to get banged up, or anyone in the infield, basically, would probably give Lenyn Sosa a shot, track to this. The problem is there are a lot of people hanging around the sides. Brandon Drury had a good game today and kind of plays some of the same spots that Sosa does. Chase Meidroth looked nice the other day. I don't know that they'll push him up onto the roster, not even being on the 40-man. But when you look around in the various corners, there are people lingering around here, and so you kind of wonder what that's going to take. But injuries would be able to help clear a path for Lenyn Sosa. And number 3, the one that I'm not sure they'll be able to detect fully from just the spring training, I don't think that we could know from last year's hot September. Maybe in winter leagues they saw some stuff, I'm not sure. But it's that he adjusts his swing decisions enough to give the staff the impression that there could be more growth there. Lenyn Sosa swings at everything. I think he's a career 3% walk rate guy. His on-base percentage was something abysmal, like 257 for his career. He's a guy who definitely doesn't fit the part of anything they want to do here. But if you can kind of get halfway there, if you went from your 3% walk rate to 6 or 7% with that power, maybe they can find a roster spot for you. There needs to be the incremental growth in an area where it's very difficult to grow at the age he's at. You've already been in the major leagues for a few years, and trying to tame those swing decisions usually is a tough thing to do for these older dogs. And so I think out of his current stat line, the 2 walks might be the most important shit in there. If that is real, if his ability to hold off and only swing quality pitches were to hold up, maybe he does have a shot to be in there, but being right guy, poor defender, and no walks really kind of hinders him. I'll get to a drink right now. My guy Husky Bardo, he says, "Cheers, beef." Cheers, Husky. And as I mentioned at the onset of the show, if you guys put super chats and want to ask some questions, feel free. I rarely take questions on this show. I almost never do, but because I'm solo, why not tonight? So thank you, Bardo. Appreciate you. All right. Going back to it doesn't matter, because I've been hearing a lot about this too. Miguel Vargas looking like early season Roger Dorn in Major League at third base. I'm here to tell you right now, even if he is truly a butcher at third base, it doesn't fucking matter. It does not matter for 2025. The White Sox went out and made a trade to grab Miguel Vargas. What they're going to find out come hell or high water is, can this man hit? Can this guy be the hitter that he looked like he was going to be coming up in the Dodgers system? And so them playing him at third base has nothing to do with his defensive strength or this is his best utility as a defender. This is more like a comfort. This is more like a, let's help you try to unlock what you can unlock. These types of situations don't last forever. There's going to be a limited time in which the White Sox are going to placate a guy so that they could figure out if he is actually what they traded for. Now, you as a fan watched the end of last season. I know I did. And Miguel Vargas fucking sucked, right? And you and I and maybe a lot of people would have thought, well, he's got to be in the hot seat for that. But in the offseason, the White Sox asked him to put on weight, which he did. They asked him to change his swing, which he did. They're going to give him some run. He's going to get plate appearances, okay? They're going to figure out one way or another whether or not this man could hit. And, you know, the hitting mechanism right now, it seems like it's not even turned on, or trying to turn it on, it's in a foreign language. We can't get it to get going, right? And his early spring training results have not been great either, although control of the strike zone has been there. So that's a trait he's long had, and that did come back. So don't worry about if he's a butcher at third. The White Sox, they care about their defense, but ultimately what they care about is finding parts that might actually work. I don't know if Miguel Vargas is one, and if you're out there saying Miguel Vargas is definitely not one, you may end up being right. But I think the White Sox want to look at it. And when we talked about this in the 108 podcast, Treese basically said he thought they would at least give him to June to figure out, okay, can we see it? What does this look like? All right. Can he actually hit? If he can't, I think the rope, you know, all this rope that he's getting right now, it's going to end at some point in the middle of the season. You still have Brian Ramos hanging around. But I think they don't want to just junk a trade they made immediately after, you know, a month and a half of bad results. I just don't see that. I think he's going to be given a lot of runway here, and that's basically it. I think that's it. So don't worry about his glove at third. I mean, you worry about it game to game, like we lost that game because this guy doesn't know how to fucking play third base. Absolutely, I'd be screaming and yelling with you. But I mean, as far as a long-term thing in spring training, this shit is meaningless. They're going to look at this bat. We're going to see this bat. We're going to see a couple hundred plate appearances before they make the decision. Okay, we think he can or can't cut this, and then they'll react from there. And probably what ends up happening is if they figure out that he can hit, then they won't worry so much about position. Then they'll figure out, can you play first? Or can we tolerate your third base defense? Or are you the DH now? Or whatever. But the key part is to get him comfortable enough so that they can make the evaluation if this motherfucker can hit.